Doug Ford is absolutely a liar. He is lying about the impacts that it has.
Order. I mean, just the usage of that term in the House of Commons is not really acceptable. So I would ask the member for Hamilton Centre maybe to retract that and find a more appropriate word.
Just to be clear, though, that is only pertaining to the members within this House. And given that Premier is outside of this House, I will not withdraw my comments because he is misleading Ontarians on the impact that this is going to have on these workers.
Well, the NDP lost its bid to an emergency debate yesterday. Now, ahead of our show tonight, we were able to speak with MP Green about the federal government's response to this anti-strike legislation. Mr. Green, thanks for joining us. I want to begin with a bit of a breakdown here. Why do you believe the federal government should step in on a provincial matter?
Well, what we're seeing is an alarming trend of provincial premiers across the country who are preemptively invoking the notwithstanding clause because they know that the legislation that they're bringing in is in direct violation to Canadians' charter rights.
The notwithstanding clause has been used by other provinces like Quebec, for example, who recently used it in Bill 21, prohibiting public sector workers from wearing religious symbols on the job. So why is the focus on Ontario?
Well, I think there was a pretty significant focus on what was happening in Quebec across the country. I think for this particular instance, this is the first precedent where they're using it against labor. They are using it to actively undermine the collective agreement of workers who have had 10 years of deferred wages. These are education support workers, some of the lowest paid workers in the public sector who went some years at a 0% freeze, other years where they were demanded to come in at 1.5%, which everybody knows is below inflation. So they've had 10 years of wage theft, and now you have a government under Doug Ford who's using this to force them into a situation where they have to accept what the government's offering. And look, people can talk about austerity, but at the end of the day, you have a Doug Ford government who's sitting on a surplus. They're sending checks out to parents while simultaneously refusing to pay the lowest paid public sector workers in the province.
We know Trudeau has spoken with Ford by phone. Trudeau mentioned yesterday that they are considering options on responding to the clause, but without the federal Liberal government actually stepping in, what other options do the unions have to fight back?
Well, this is the thing that I think is most egregious is that I know that other conservative right-wing premiers across the country are going to be looking at this closely. We're working into a time of austerity. They're going to be cutting back on social services. They're going to be cutting back or looking to attack collective agreements in the way that Doug Ford has. The Prime Minister has within his ability to use a disallowance clause. He has within his ability through the Ministry of Justice to use this as a case study at court, to use it as a reference to actually test the limits of the notwithstanding clause. The notwithstanding clause, when it was designed, was not used or contemplated as being something that premiers can pull out of their back pocket to opt out of the charter rights, which should be inherent to all Canadians across the country, simply because it's their political motive to do so. This is a serious constitutional question, in my opinion, and one that deserves the attention and ultimately the greatest response from the Prime Minister to ensure that this doesn't become a trend in the future months to come with other conservative-leaning premiers across the country.
Mr. Green, thank you for joining us on Trending Now.